The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make the louder noise, but women rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghosts. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Oh, the deeper I fall.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, just please take your seat about her. We're with you. It's time for takeoff. Start. 2, 1. Boost ignition and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott. It's good to have you along for the ride on this Monday, September 18th. Tuesday, September 19th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond, hope you had a great day and night. We are live right here in the Great White North on top of the mountains of central British Columbia as we are here 7 days a week. We welcome in everyone listening in on our terrestrial stations, WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Like our music, get your horns up for Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Now, if you're a social media junkie like I am, you could follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Listen to us on TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio in the United States. Tune us in on TuneIn and download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, if you want to take part in this show, you got to do me a favor. You got to sign into one of the chat rooms. You either go on Revolution Radio, Spreaker, the UPRN chat room, or if you're on Facebook, join us at the official chat at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, just use the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. I will get to your questions and comments in there as well. Now, if you head to our website for $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. And as of right now, go to our Spaced Out Radio store, pick yourself up a t-shirt. They look really good. Read the encounter online. You can check out my latest blog there as well. And if you've had an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. And you got some great video viewing from Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers and Leslie Mitchell-Clark's Contact TV. Tonight, since it's the third Monday of the month, it means it's time to look way up into the skies where we search for the elusive UFOs. And on the third Monday of the month, we bring in Tim Doyle from UFOseekers.com to go over his research into the spaceship phenomenon. Recently, Tim made waves around the world as he and his partner Tracey climbed up Nevada's Tikaboo Peak and took some amazing photos of Area 51. This went viral. So that's where we're starting tonight. Tim, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. How you doing, my man?
Great, Dave. Thanks for having me on again. And hello, space travelers.
I got to tell you, man, I'm tired tonight. I kicked the crap out of myself trying to get a bunch of wood cut for the winter. And with going to the Paracon this weekend down in Washington State, trying to get as much as I possibly can done. Well, I can tell you right now, man, not because it's you, but I literally have toothpicks holding open my eyelids right now after spending 8 hours in the forest and cutting wood and, trying to act like a man, barely worked, my friend. Yeah. It barely worked.
Well, I'm going to call it lumberjack radio now then.
Well, if you saw the jacket I have on right now, keeping me warm because it's bloody cold outside. And believe it or not, you know how we were talking earlier on, I think a day or two ago, we were talking about the temperatures here, about how, or it was earlier today, we were talking about the temperatures here. There's an area about 30 miles south of me that got snowed on today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been quite a temperature drop down here in California, too. But it's welcome here. I mean, we had a stretch of 120-degree weather here in Bakersfield, and especially out in the desert. So when we're out there trying to film, at Edwards Air Force Base or Area 51, it's really hard to have like static cameras set up when it's 120 degrees, and in direct sunlight it's like 140. So I have cameras that get, it only takes like 30 minutes to an hour before they want to shut off. So it creates a lot of problems, but. So we're kind of welcome. Come on, winter.
Well, you know what? I'm okay with that. After the summer we have had up here, and we're just allowed now, like within the last couple of weeks, to actually take our chainsaws out. So everybody, see up here, people still use wood stoves. They use their fireplaces to heat their houses because otherwise, electricity bills and heating bills would be absolutely through the roof up here. So they allow us to go into the forests and take as many dead trees down as we possibly can, because literally dead trees are fuel for a forest fire. And that was proven earlier this year, or this summer, just a couple of months ago. So they've just allowed people to start taking their chainsaws back into the forest. So everybody right now is scrambling to try and get firewood for the winter. And now you're battling not only firewood, but you're battling the hunters as well, because it's hunting season. And it's like, oh my goodness, this thing's never going to end. Never going to end. But that's okay. That's really okay. I did something cool yesterday, man. I have to tell the audience this in case they didn't see my pictures on Twitter or Facebook. Around my area, there are wild horses. So yesterday, Mark Spender, myself, Mrs. SOR, and little SOR, we went driving around. And Mark is a guy who knows this area like the back of his hand. He knows every back road to everywhere. And so we spent a couple hours driving yesterday. And we come down by what they call Gustafson Lake. And there's a big open meadow, and there's cattle in there, free-range cattle. And behind the cattle, man, there were a dozen wild horses. First time I've ever seen awesome. Wild horses, man. And I was just so thrilled because since I moved up here, I've seen so many animals in the wild that I've never seen before. I mean, deer are everywhere. You know, they're like a household pet. But since I moved up here, I've seen moose, I've seen wolves, I've seen foxes. You know, I never saw a bear with cubs before, or that's happened twice this year. You know, I never seen a lynx. You know, it's the closest I've ever been to a cougar that wasn't in a cage. You know, I still got a couple of animals I want to see. I want to see a marten. They're like a weasel with a big bushy fox-like tail. I want to see a badger. Oh, I saw a porcupine up here too. I didn't realize they were that big. I want to see a grizzly bear. That I want to see. And I want to see Sasquatch up here. Dogman can stay away, but I definitely want to see Sasquatch.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's perfect. I have a Sasquatch story right here in front of me, actually, I wanted to talk about.
Absolutely. Before we get into the UFOs, why don't we get into a little bit of Sasquatch talk, and I'll tell you what I did last week as well with Mark.
Okay. Yeah, this one comes in from a person who was hiking north of L.A., so in the mountains, kind of above Glendale, and it actually happened October 23rd, 1987, and it says, while hunting in a canyon in that mountain area, I found a game trail with very fresh tracks and followed them to a small stream rain runoff. I started digging up some scorpions to pay for the trip and to take to a pet store to sell when the ground started shaking. I heard a thump noise that sounded like something very heavy but extremely big was coming my way at a high rate of speed. It was heading downhill in my direction. I moved behind a large boulder for protection and chambered a 250 grain bullet for my .30-06. Shouldering the rifle, I looked through my scope, and that's when I saw it. About 45 yards distance, it was about 8 to 10 feet tall and extremely muscular. I estimated it weighed somewhere between 1,300 and 1,700 pounds. It was black. It was not threatening, just staring and wanting to pass. We stood and sized each other up until I backed off. I didn't fire, as I'm sure my rifle wouldn't drop the thing. It was that large. I continued to back up and then ran towards my truck, having to circle to get to the truck. There was only 45 yards between us. I was a very young man, ex-bodyguard who could bench 550 pounds. This has forever changed my life. I have run into other people who've seen it. I was sober, I don't do drugs, and I've never hunted again.
Well, you know what?
That's a pretty incredible story.
You know what? That doesn't surprise me. And what I mean by that is I know there's a lot of hunters up here. And trust me, there are only 2 seasons up here, or 3 seasons. You have boating season, you have hunting season, and you have hockey season up here. And for some reason, all 3 seasons are combined fashion-wise with camouflage, right? So I don't know, I don't quite understand why. But I have talked to numerous hunters up here who say the same thing, that if they saw a Sasquatch, and these are people who've never seen a print. Mark, my new Bigfoot guy for the paranormal team I'm just about to put together here, when I showed him that print that we found, he's like, dude, there is no way I could raise a rifle to it. There is no way. Because for a lot of people who have these experiences out in the forest, Tim, they seem to think that it's almost like they're raising their rifle to a human being and immediately drop it. So when we hear all these people saying, oh, I just shoot it. Well, would you really shoot a human being? You know what I'm saying?
Right. And this one occurred near a government facility that we've been investigating. And so, it makes you wonder, is it some kind of genetic testing that was going on, and this is kind of the result of that,
I don't know what it is, man. I really don't know. But, I mean, when people have this run-in with this creature, they are either absolutely in awe or they seem to be absolutely freaked out. There doesn't seem to be anything in between where people are gaining their control of their thoughts and thinking logically. You know what I'm saying, Tim?
Yeah. It's even different than running into a bear, because the bear, it's a bear, and you just start backing up or you stop, and it seems like when people see whatever Sasquatch is, it's a completely different reaction.
When it comes to Sasquatch, and I realize you being in Northern California, there's a lot of sightings from Bakersfield on up into Cascadia, because you're right at the bottom of Cascadia here. Is Sasquatch, even though you are UFO seekers, something that you want to get more into?
I don't think I'd want to say more into, but it's something that can come up, so it was kind of always our intention with UFO Seekers just to investigate anything that would seem mysterious. So I wouldn't say that it's exclusive to just UFOs, because we have done a ghost hunt before. We have a good friend who owns Silver City Ghost Town, which is located by Lake Elsinore, California. And it's a collection of buildings that come from the 1800s all around Kern County from the gold mining era. And the buildings were all moved and saved and put on this one property where they've been there since the late 60s. And so the owner invited me to come spend the night. So I spent the night in the ghost town by myself and tried to catch some evidence. And I caught a rope swinging and a couple EVPs. So I think just because of what we do and the equipment we have, that there are other paranormal avenues that come up. But I think since we spend so much time in national parks and in the forests, that we have a great chance of running into something like that if something like that exists. And we do pull Bigfoot reports and Sasquatch reports, and we do pull mutilation reports. So maybe those two things can kind of coincide, I guess. But we would have no problem. In fact, that's kind of why I read you that story, is that we're doing some research right now on multiple Bigfoot incidents that have happened in an area, and at the same time kind of talking about the history of a naval facility that's in the area, and then another government facility that isn't well known and kind of deals with genetics and biological plants and stuff like that. So.
Well, you'll be glad to know that we're going to be testing out our little Sasquatch print area. About, I'm going to say 100 feet from it, there is this strange, almost teepee-like structure made. I can't even call it a structure, but it's just kind of weird that all of these trees just fell into this one tree. You know what I'm saying? And then on the
ground, that kind of reminds me of the Les Stroud videos.
Yeah. And then on the ground, there happens to be, it's almost like somebody laid down very thin pieces of wood in a square leading into it, kind of like an entranceway. It's the strangest thing. But in the fir tree, right in the middle of where all these dead trees are leaning in, Okay, and trust me, I mean, to think logically about it, okay, there is a lot of wind back there, okay, and the wind can knock down the trees, and we're climbing over dead trees all over the place. That's just the way it is, okay, but for all of them to fall onto this one, and then the fir tree that's alive and holding everything up, when we walked in, Mark noticed, he goes, what's that up there? And at about 10 feet high, the bark had been peeled right off to the center of the tree, and all the sap was covering on that, and the sap was running down and like it was bleeding. And there were 2 sections like that. Now at 10 feet high, you know, it isn't the pine beetle, because they go inside, and we have a pine beetle problem up here. It isn't woodpeckers, because there was no holes. So we're looking at this mystery thinking, what the hell could do that at 10 feet high? And there's only 2 solutions. It's either, well, we found a Sasquatch track less than 100 feet away, or number 2, it's a bear. But the problem is there's no bear claws. You know what I'm saying? But there are bears in the area. There's grizzly bears, there's black bears. So could it very well have been a bear that pulled it off and just didn't leave its claw marks because they got torn off with the bark? Could very well be. But that's where we set up this gifting site. And so now we have a bunch of toys out there. Went and raided the dollar store, put some marbles on the ground, and you know, we're going to see probably in the next week if there's any more action. Probably after I get back from Paracon, we're going to go see if we've had any action whatsoever, if whether or not it's human or not. I have some tips that I've been given by Butch Witkowski and Edie Kaito and a couple other people. So we've set up the gifting site. It's in an area where not a lot of people wander. So we're going to see where it goes, man. We're going to see where it goes.
Interesting. That's interesting. You know, but for most of my, whenever we're dealing with something like that, I usually defer to Tracey because she grew up in Idaho, and her dad was a rancher. So she's actually spent her life growing up as a hunter. So she could actually skin animals, and, you know, I'm kind of the urban kid who grew up in Long Beach, right next to Los Angeles. So I'm not really the outdoors type growing up. And, you know, I'm more the computer nerd. So for lots of stuff like that, that's when I defer to her. And, you know, she knows way more than me. She would go out on horseback and go hunt for 5 days, you know, and go horseback into the back country and into the mountains. So she's really good at camping and survival living and hunting. So.
Well, you know what? Tracey needs to come up here. You guys need to come up here and check this out. With all the UFO activity and potential Sasquatch activity, I think you guys need to make a road trip. That's just me.
Yeah, we just love nature, so.
Well, there's a lot of nature outside right now, because I can tell you it's a moonless night up here, and the stars are beaming outside right now. I love seeing the stars this early. But it is all good, my friend. It is all good. You know, the other thing that I wanted to mention to you is, you know, did you get a chance to look at our photo that we got from our ghost hunt?
I did.
What'd you think?
Yeah, that photo was creepy.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Jason from the movie standing up there. I mean, that's how creepy the whatever it is looks like in that picture. So it's an awesome catch.
Yeah, and, you know, there's been a few, you know, people saying it isn't what it is, and we're okay with that. And there are a lot of people who ask me, are you going back to test out the area? We were going to try and go back this weekend, so I just want to update everybody on that. We were just planning on going back this weekend. However, on a short notice, an impromptu notice with my team members, because I wanted to bring in everybody who was there on the team, and no point in going in just one of us or two of us, but we had to make sure that everybody was there. We didn't get a chance to go back this weekend to test everything out because we have a lot of questions. We're just as curious as everybody else out there. Even though, we believe 100% that photo is authentic, we still wanted to go back there and test it out. And not only test it out, but try and figure out who the heck that was. Because we weren't used to that, whatever it was, being there. Normally, there's a guy in there, Tim, who we see all the time, members see all the time, and people on the tour see all the time, who kind of sits against the wall or leans against the wall, and we call him the Shadow Man, and you could see his Stetson cowboy hat in the shadow, and that's kind of where he is. But this was a whole new kettle of fish, man. Whole new kettle of fish. So we're definitely going to be testing this one out.
Yeah, I think if I saw something that looked like the thing in that picture, I might have pulled out my firearm.
Oh, what are you going to shoot at, though? What are you going to shoot at?
Nothing.
I will say that
it's funny.
I will say this, though. That photo made the paper. That photo of Connie's made the
That's
paper.
Awesome.
Yeah, they were doing a story about how much money we raised for the volunteer fire department, and they ended up using that photo from the event. And I'm pretty sure when we do the tour again on October 14th that it's going to be just as entertaining. But I definitely want to get in there before we do that, because I want to try and figure out what that was. I really want to try and figure out what that was. That was just way too intense. And like I said, I didn't expect that whatsoever. So we have to try and do our best to figure it out.
Yeah, and I wish we could get up there and film an episode, man. One day.
I know Mike Morin from Haunted Crew of Canada is now pretty excited. And just so you know, and this is for our audience, on Wednesday this week, Mike Morin, who will be joining me, who joins me for Ghosts of the Great White North, the third Wednesday of every month, he'll also be joining me down at the Forest Moon Paracon this weekend, as he's one of the speakers. We're actually going to get a few of us in there to discuss this photo, because Mike has investigated the museum about 6 or 7 times now. And I've done it a bunch, obviously, because I do the tour. And Corey and Carrie are both going to join me as well in regards to it. And we're going to see if anybody else is going to be joining. And we're going to basically break down the 108 Museum, because it is considered one of the most haunted and active spots in British Columbia.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Well, road trip, my friend. Road trip.
There you go.
Absolutely. So, a couple weeks ago, you decided to leave Bakersfield, California, and head back out to Area 51. How long of a drive is that for you?
From where we're at, it was a 7-hour drive just to get to the beginning, basically. I'd say 6 hours to get to the beginning of a dirt road that would eventually lead to where we were going. So we decided to head up to Tikaboo Peak, because that's kind of the closest spot where you could catch a view from Area 51 these days. So, yeah, we drove about 6 hours, and then it's from there, you go north of Vegas, maybe 2 or 3 hours, and then you'll hit a dirt road. And the dirt road's in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't have any signs or anything. In fact, when you get on it, there's a sign that looks like it's telling you no public access. And it's a difficult road, so most people probably need a 4-wheel drive to make it. In fact, the first 13 miles are real dusty and sandy, lots of silt that gets all over. So if you have a truck with stuff in the back of a truck, it's going to get ruined and covered in silt.
But the military likes it that way, though.
Yeah, of course. And in fact, there's a weather station somewhere around mile 16, mile 18 that people swear is part of the sensor system to let them know that you're headed up towards the mountain. So, and basically you're coming from a backside where the camo guys wouldn't be able to see you. So if you're standing at Area 51 and let's say you're looking east, which is kind of where everyone goes and hangs out. So east of the base, you have a single mountain range, which is where Freedom Ridge would be located, where people were allowed to go back in the day. And that's where the government has taken that and closed that down. And so you go through the next valley, you know, you go over Freedom Ridge, which you could see Groom Lake from, but now you go through that valley, and the next mountain range is Tickaboo Peak. And Tickaboo Peak goes up to about 8,000 feet. And in fact, the mountain behind it, Badger Mountain, is actually taller. But because of the way Tickaboo Peak sits, you actually can't see Area 51, because when you're up at that 8,000-foot range, you can kind of just see Area 51 perfect in this V through the mountains. And that's one of the things that everyone knows is weird, because typically when you have a mountain range system here in the United States, the government likes to put weather stations on the tallest peak in that little range. And we have weather stations. I mean, every mountain me and Tracey seem to summit, there's a weather station on top, usually with a video camera. And this is the only one where the weather station isn't on the tallest mountain. So Tickaboo Peak's actually shorter than Badger Mountain. But because of the fact that you can see Area 51 from the Tickaboo Peak mountain, which actually isn't really a name. So Tickaboo Peak is just actually like a nickname that was given to it, I believe, by a guy named Glenn Campbell, who was looking for a place to view Area 51. And, so, you know, that's what everybody calls it. And so they even put a weather station on this no-name little summit in the middle of this range instead of putting it on the tallest mountain. So it's really strange.
Now, did you change up your approach? Because normally you are out there in your UFO Seekers SUV. Did you change your approach at all going into this one because the fact that, you know, you're going to be spending some time up there?
No, in fact, the reason we have that on there is so, you know, people know what we're doing. But kind of on that backside, you know, I wouldn't say there's really any video cameras or anyone who would see you. And you're not really driving through any, I mean, Vegas is, for the people who've ever been to Vegas, once you go north of Vegas, there is nothing. And there isn't even a city until you get to Alamo, which would be where you turn left on the extraterrestrial highway to kind of make your way to Rachel, where the little alien inn is. And so on our drive, when we went north of Vegas, it's like 70-something miles. There isn't even a city there. So, and then once you get on the dirt road, there's nobody out there. So, and in fact, once you make it to kind of the base of the trailhead, which would lead you to Tickaboo Peak, you definitely need to make sure you have like reliable transportation, because it would be a long hike, you know, to get all the way back. It'd be a multi-day hike. So,
well, when you were there, were you going to get pictures of Area 51, or were you just seeing what was happening and just happened to say, hey, this would make a great shot?
No, we went to catch a view and see what's going on, you know. We had looked at all the footage online, and it seemed like a lot of the things that are online were either old or probably not the best quality cameras, and more than anything, probably taken at the wrong time of day. And the weather up there is terrible. I mean, absolutely terrible. And in fact, you're having like 100-degree weather. When we were up there at 8,000 feet, it was 85 degrees on the summit. So when we looked up the weather station said that it was 74 degrees in the daytime and like 55 at night. But when we actually got up to the summit, it was 85, and our camp spot was at 7,000 feet, and it was actually 92 at 7,000 feet. So I think when a lot of people kind of go out to this area, they're not expecting like the harsh desert conditions where like elevation doesn't even matter. It's still like hot out there, you know. So we had hiked up and made the mountain climb, which took 5 hours total, you know. So it was almost 3 hours to get there up to the peak, and then over an hour to get back down. And we took 6 bottles of water, and it wasn't even close to enough. So, you know, I would recommend if anybody was making the trip in the heat to take at least like 10 bottles of water. So it's quite an aggressive climb.
What about for those of us who are a tad out of shape, maybe got a double chin, you know, is there an escalator or anything up there, or anything
there
that
is
we
not.
can take?
In
Tow
fact,
rope or anything?
I would definitely class that one as a very difficult climb. I mean, there's parts where you're on your hands, you're on your hands and feet climbing up what feels like almost straight up, and it's all on slate, like a smashed slate rock. So it's almost like you're walking on a sand silt, and it's just this slippery, thin slate rock that just falls out from under your feet. In fact, we both fell down multiple times, and the backpack I took up there weighed almost 100 pounds. So it was quite an excursion.
So when you get
and
to
in fact, you have to like summit first peak. So when you're at the trailhead, you're looking at like a false mountain in front of you and a false peak in front of you. And you actually have to hike up to the top of that peak, and then you make your way along like a shoulder that shoulders and connects Tikaboo Peak to this false peak. And then you make another climb up Tikaboo, another couple hundred feet to the top.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that may be a place old Davey never sees. Till they put
but I got you good enough footage, you know. I got you drone footage.
I realize that.
Footage. I took some short lens, so, you know, and that's what we really try to do for people is, you know, I know some of these places might have been done before, or, you know, maybe some of the places we go aren't that great, but we really try to focus on like taking people to these places and getting to see like a full range, you know, and that's why it's in like HD quality, and it just gives people the experience of going there, because I promise you, Dave, sometimes it seems like glamorous in the video, but just like a survival show, you know, there's lots of stuff going on in the background, and it's real difficult to make some of these trips. So,
oh, very understandable. I'm surprised that the government hasn't closed that area off yet, considering they've done so at other areas where people could view into the base. They've taken over the land where mountaintops or mountain ranges may look into the base. I'm very surprised that they haven't grabbed that yet.
Yeah, and in fact, I would expect them to at some point. If you actually go south of Tikaboo Peak and you stay in that range of mountains, just south of there, maybe a mile or two, the Area 51 facility, the Nevada Test and Training Range, actually goes into that mountain range a little bit, and all they'd have to do is just extend it up. And in fact, you know, now they passed like the new drone laws around there that came in like 2015 and 2016. So the county even has like its own laws against people flying drones around the border of the Test and Training Range. So it definitely will get more difficult to take a peek in there.
Do you think that because of the difficulty of climbing Tikaboo Peak, that's the reason why we don't see that many photos or videos out of that area?
Yeah. In fact, I would consider, like, let's just say there was like a hypothetical and a tourist decided, hey, let's just go climb up Tikaboo Peak. It's almost like insanity. I mean, it's something where you should be ready if someone gets hurt. You know, if someone got hurt on that climb and you had to make it back down to the vehicle, or the vehicle didn't work and someone was hurt, I mean, we're talking about a serious situation where someone can die. And it also snows there. So I think a lot of the times when the people make it up there, they get stopped by snow. You could get trapped by snow that just comes. And being in the desert, you get crazy thunderstorms out of nowhere. And the roads, once you get up to the base of Tikaboo Peak, have huge ruts from rainstorms and flash floods that come through there. And in our video, you can see I have to like get the shovel out, and we had to do that a couple times and fix some sections, you know, so the Hyundai could make it up there.
So take us, Tim, to the peak, okay, and take us around to see and kind of paint a picture for us about what you were looking at when you're up there.
Yeah, so once you cross that shoulder, you go just like 100 feet up, and you're just below the actual Tikaboo Peak part, and you can kind of see like one or two of the buildings. So you turn right and then make your way up to the actual peak itself, and probably half of the time you can see the little weather station up there, so you're kind of always climbing and see the little stick up there with the camera. But then once you get up there, the view is amazing. You can see almost 360 degrees, but Badger Mountain, which would be behind us. If we were looking at Area 51, Badger Mountain would now be behind us, so that blocks the view behind us because it's bigger than Tikaboo. But when you're facing Area 51, you can look out to the right-hand side, and you can see the extraterrestrial highway running to Rachel, Nevada. You can't see Rachel and the little alien inn because it's actually hidden behind a small hill, like down in the valley floor. So the ET highway kind of makes its way past Groom Lake Road. So this is also where the black mailbox is, and where the black mailbox is, so I'm looking out to the right-hand side. So I'm staring straight at Area 51. I'm looking out to the right on the valley floor. That's where the black mailbox is, the ET highway, and that's the start of Groom Lake Road. And that's the road you'd want to take if anyone's watched like our first couple episodes. This will take you to the rear entrance. And so that's what we're looking at. This is where like the employee bus comes in. And if we're looking, straight at Area 51 from Tikaboo Peak, this Groom Lake Road entrance is just a little off center to the right-hand side. And then to the left, you can see a dry lake bed. And we show it for a minute in the video. I show it a little more in our newest video because we just put up some more footage. I actually made a panorama from the pictures that we took, and the panorama image I made is actually 300 inches wide. So if I actually printed this picture out, it would be 300 inches wide. And it's a panorama of the base that we put together to show you all the different areas. And we uploaded that, I believe, yesterday or the day before. And when you're up there, I mean, it's amazing. You can really see the base, but it's a far distance. So don't expect when you're standing up there to really see detail. You definitely have to have like binoculars or a camera or something, a scope that's going to give you a view of the base. Because from there, you're sitting somewhere between 30 to 45 miles from the facility. So do take that into account. When you're looking at our video, remember this area we're looking at is about 35 miles away, 40 miles away. And that's the quality of the video we got. So I actually had a 2600 millimeter lens.
I was actually going to ask you about that because your pictures and your video went absolutely viral in regards to the clarity of everything. How were you able to capture such clarity of the hidden base called Dreamland?
Well, definitely it has to do, I've been doing photography for a long time, so, I think if you just plan it right and you take the right equipment, things can work out okay. I think the problem is most people are gung-ho to make it out to the trailhead. And then when it comes time to actually make it up the mountain, I mean, it's no joke. It's no joke, Dave. I almost didn't make it. That's how difficult it was for someone out of shape. I guess I consider myself kind of out of shape. I don't jog all day, so.
Jogging?
And the weather was was perfect, so.
Hold on, let's get back to that jogging thing. What is this jogging or yogging thing that you're mentioning here? I'm not sure.
It's very popular down here in California. So everyone has spandex and they go jogging.
Yes. I heard something about that around Vancouver, but not up here.
So they'd be lucky to get me out with some skateboard shoes, and that's what I might be jogging in. So
the funny part about it is a lot of people don't jog around here because there's a lot of things that can kill you. You know what I'm saying? Or they do it in groups. But you don't see that. You rarely see that lone jogger. You know what I'm saying? At like 6 a.m. if you're driving. You just don't see that.
Totally.
It's fantastic.
Right. But we were lucky because when we first got there, we got there the day before and we camped that night. And that's what I show some footage of a couple things we saw. But there was actually thunder clouds that kept building the whole time we were there. So we were lucky enough that when that next day came, I mean, it was perfectly clear. And I'd have to say that the 2 weeks before, it was extremely dusty and windy everywhere. So we just got real lucky. and it did go viral. I mean, it pretty much went in every country. It blew up with the Daily Mail, so they were kind of the first ones that picked it up in the UK, and then the Sun picked it up, and the Mirror picked it up, and then the Drive picked it up, which is a Time Incorporated online magazine, and it got picked up in the War Zone inside the Drive by Tyler Rogway, wrote a great article about it, and then from there it went into MSN and then into Yahoo, and it made its way to Australia and then into South Korea. So that's where like our favorite articles were, in South Korea. And a couple of our big countries that we went viral in were like Serbia and Turkey, South Korea, Japan was a great one. Russia did good for us, Ukraine. So pretty much every country we got a lot of activity, got covered in like mainstream media. And so I have done like a couple radio interviews since then here in the United States, and I've also turned down a TV interview in Australia. So they wanted to have us on Weekend Sunshine, which is the #1 breakfast show in Australia. But, I kind of get, they asked like a lot of military questions when I first did the phone interview. And so, the questions were like in depth about what's going on, and they started getting into like foreign military interactions. And so, I kind of get uncomfortable about diving too deep. I have no problem like sitting down with, and you would understand, Dave, like if you were looking at Canadian stuff, I look at American military stuff all day. So I wouldn't say it's great for national security to like go on foreign airwaves and start blurting about things that are non-relevant to UFOs, So if I want to tell you about like a secret drone that's getting mistaken or a black project, like that's all good. But I don't want to start talking about like nuclear capabilities and where I think missiles are, where I think like intercept missiles are, and then, my views on like politics and the politics of military and stuff like that. I do have opinions, but we really try to stay focused on just chasing UFOs and mysteries, and taking that serious and, trying not to bring that other stuff into what we do. So.
I understand that. There is a fine line. You're not there to crack down on what the military is hiding. Frankly, in my conversations with you, I've never heard you say, I got to figure out what these black ops programs are, or I got to figure out this, or I got to figure out that. I've never heard you say that. But what I have heard you say is, let's figure out what the phenomenon are flying in the sky. And to me, there's a big difference.
Right. And anything that we would be investigating would be related to sightings. So, if the government wants to fly a secret aircraft over a populated area and people see it, they shouldn't get upset if someone like me is going to start chasing whatever it was to give people answers. So, but I think that's why they fly a lot of stuff. It used to be back in the 80s, they would just fly crafts everywhere. So, there are like local reports we receive of classified aircrafts that have come down in certain areas, and people ask us to come check it out. But they don't necessarily do that anymore. They're very secretive, and it's very hard to like find areas like that anyways where they're flying these crafts, But everybody seems to think a lot of stuff happens at Area 51, and that might be where they have alien bodies underground or they're testing UFO-type technology. So I think that's what's most intriguing, and that's why we wanted to take a look, see if maybe we could catch, an unidentified object flying around or whatever. But, don't expect me in the pictures to start explaining to you exactly what kind of aircraft if we catch something. I might just show you a picture of it, but the military would show you a picture of the same thing on their social media. So.
No, I can very much understand that. You know what? People really didn't know a lot about Area 51, or really, even if they did, really didn't seem to care about it until the story of Bob Lazar came out in 1989. We're now 27, 28 years beyond that. And yet, everyone now knows where Area 51 is. There's video games, there's television shows, there's documentaries galore, there's bands with their names, Area 51. There's so much accredited to Area 51 now in regards to it. Were you surprised that just a couple of photos and a video, even clearer or not, that it went viral. That people's interest, Tim, are still so hung up on Area 51.
I mean, I guess, but, you know, I kind of have like a business background that helps me understand demand. So, you know, people are interested in what people are interested in. So if we wanted to learn about Google search and keyword searches on the internet, I think everyone would be surprised to know that they never really change. So there's always like 100 people that search for a Dodge Durango, and there's 10 people who search for a Chevy Cobalt. And every month it's pretty much the same, and the statistics don't change. People are kind of always interested what they're interested in. And then you kind of always have new people who are learning about like the conspiracy industry, or they want to learn about conspiracies themselves or UFOs and aliens, and everyone takes, you know, that journey through the internet or through books to learn about these kinds of things. And so I think that's what makes Area 51 so interesting. But I definitely would argue that even though it has become so popular, that it's still a very secretive area, and there isn't, you know, there's no aircraft that are allowed to fly over that area. If you look on a radar, you know, you don't see anything flying over these spots. And there are like war games that happen in this area to the west of Area 51. So you do have like war games that happen here with like aircraft and ground, but it's mostly aircraft. So it's still like a highly utilized area. So, you know, and the way it's positioned and with the mountains and everything, and the fact that they still have the camo dudes doing what they're doing and that heavy private security, we definitely know that something's still going on in there. I mean, the Janet flights still go in there, but what's going on, who knows? I mean, we have all this speculation. A great story that I heard recently from someone who reported, you know, kind of an Area 51 story. He said that he knew someone who worked on the base, and when he'd, you know, go to work, that they would like separate you into like colors. So you'd work on like the purple project or the blue project or the green project. And the way this person was employed, it was at a, you know, like a week at a time. So once you got there, you were like stuck there for a week. So you didn't actually like leave every day. And if you were on, let's say that this gentleman was part of the green team, you know, you have a dorm on site where you sleep, like a dorm room, and everyone has their dorm rooms. And when you open the door to the dorm room, there's a color on the ground in a line drawn on the ground. And so if he's on the green project, when he opens his door, he sees a green line on the ground. And what you're supposed to do is, okay, if you're supposed to work at 9 o'clock in the morning and you're working in the green project hangar or building or whatever, office, you know, because, hey, if you're underground, so you just go into an office or underground hangar or something, you know, you follow this green line and you make your way. The green line takes you to the place where you're working, and if you don't make it by 9, the door's closed, and the door doesn't open again until 5 when the shift is over. So everyone is working in their individual rooms and their individual areas, and you're all locked in for the workday. And that ensures that no one's seeing other projects or things don't get loose. And, you know, I'm sure if they're working on something biological, like let's say even alien hybrids or something, you know, you want those doors locked while the projects are going on. So, you know, you follow your line, you go through your door, the door shuts at 9, you're inside your workspace, and then when you're done, you can leave and the door opens again. They're on time locks. And in fact, he told a story of someone who actually like had a heart attack inside, and they don't even open the doors for like emergencies, even though they have medical staff on the premises. But these doors don't open even if you have something like a heart attack. So that's, you know, how aggressive they are in protecting the secrets that are down there, you know. And I wouldn't doubt if there's weird German aircraft and they're, you know, somehow the Germans seem to have made technology that's UFO-like, you know, even the fact that they had invented the V-2 rocket, and that's what America used to build our space industry around was those German scientists. You know, so I think a lot of what's happening underground has to do with reverse engineering, a lot of that old technology, which was way ahead of its time. And then if they do have a downed UFO, I would, bet money on that Area 51 would be one of the places where you'd want to store it. So.
Well, nonetheless, it is still a hotbed of conversation. And, maybe it is all just public curiosity, Tim, that we continue to be so intrigued by what is happening in the Nevada desert, and I know I am. I know one day I want to go out there. I just want to, for me, I just want that photo beside the sign, where you just... You've had the sign on your videos before, where it just says, cross here, we can use deadly force. I just want a picture. I just want a picture of that. That's all I want, man. I don't know why, but I do want to get out there.
But I'm telling you, even with all of the exposure around it, and maybe we'd say that the public is comfortable with it, even understanding there are camo dudes, it is scary. When you are at that entrance, you see the camo dudes, they have AR-15s in there. They can use deadly force.
Hey, you hold on.
I'm telling you,
you hold on. Let's get to this right at the next hour here. Tim Doyle from UFOseekers.com is our guest. Tim comes on Spaced Out Radio the third Wednesday of every month, talking everything UFOs. We'll be back with hour number 2 and Tim right after this on Spaced Out Radio.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at UFOseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Want a place to share your experiences without feeling judged? We have the place for you. If you've experienced sightings or contact with ETs, ghosts, cryptids, or UFOs, and you'd like someone to confidentially look into the matter, just fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our goal is to help you get the answers you need to the experiences you've had with our professional team of researchers. Your information stays 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines report. Fill out your experience today only at spacedoutradio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience, Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you along for the ride. Tomorrow night on the program, Patrick Roddy is going to join us. We're going to get back into the skies, but we're going to be talking about chemtrails. Yes, chemtrails, tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Great to have you with us as well. We are also live on KTLK, the Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Safarnicate. Oh, I butchered that one. Safarcinate. Or is it Safarcinate? One of the two. But that is your password for tonight, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow me on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use our hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with us live during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. You can also listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live, tune us in on TuneIn, and you can download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. You can file a SOR Sightlines report, rock out to some Bumblefoot, read The Encounter, or check out some great video footage from UFO Seekers and Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV, everything at spacedoutradio.com. It is the third Monday of the month, which means it's time for Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers to be joining us. Tim, welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
Now, right before the break, we were talking about, going up to the Area 51 sign where you all of a sudden have the view of the camo dudes, and you were talking about how freaky that can actually be.
Yeah, and especially like you're in Nevada. So in Nevada, like anything is a jailable offense. So, depending on what's going on, let's say the attitude of the officer or your attitude, like they could literally just take you away to jail. And so that's kind of how it works. Anyone who's going out there and does anything like crosses the line or tries to go on to the base, they're going to escort you back to the border, and they call the Lincoln County Sheriff. And so if anybody watches our episode 5, that's where we were camping near this entrance that we're talking about. We were camped at the closest camp spot you can get to it. And we, spent the night, and we had, tripods out and cameras, and, they bullied us all night. They flash their lights at you. They drive by fast. And pretty much every hour on the hour, so even while we're trying to sleep, they're still doing this stuff, trying to make sure that you're not comfortable staying there. And so add on top of that they're carrying around weapons, they can use deadly force, so most of the tourists are gung-ho until you get around a corner. So basically what happens is you're kind of driving straight towards that hill. So everyone knows, like, kind of the famous pictures and videos, those camo guys are sitting up on a hill looking towards you down at the sign. And you actually are coming towards that hill, but it curves to the left, and you go down into a little valley, and you can't see anything, and then it hard turns to the right, and you come around this corner, and then it's a short distance to those signs. And then that's all of a sudden where you have multiple cameras sitting on the left-hand side up on those poles, looking down at you, and sensors, and then that's where you have those camo dudes. So, and I would just recommend to anybody, we do spend a lot of time, I'd say near military facilities. Me and Tracey just took a tour of Edwards Air Force Base last week. So we actually talked to test pilots and went and looked at test aircrafts. We actually took a drive down the flight line and, got to see F-35s on the runway, the NASA experimental F-16, which is testing autonomous flight. We got to see the C-130s types, cargo planes. And so we spend a lot of time around these people and understanding that the employees of these places, these security people are normal people just trying to do their job. But at the same time, it's not much of a joke when someone's out there. So I think a lot of people don't take it serious enough sometimes, that they're kind of playing games with their life. So, we do try to minimize our interactions with them. Even though I guess, we're going up there and they're following us around or whatever, but it's never something where we're trying to do anything aggressive or whatever, even think of doing something aggressive or crossing the line. I think there's just lines that you kind of don't cross when it comes to that. There's black and white areas, and that's one of those black and white areas. When you're up on Tickaboo Peak and taking a picture, I kind of consider that a gray area. No one knows if the men in black are going to show up at my house or, these camel guys are going to show up. It was weird. We did have some Air Force Material Command planes that landed in our local airport here. So we kind of thought that was a little weird because it's the Material Command that runs a lot of this stuff. So, we do kind of trip out about that and the repercussions later on. But, like I was saying, I think those are kind of gray areas rather than when you're at the border and the entrance, you have the physical security there. There's kind of black and white lines you don't cross. So.
Well, that brings up another good point here, because in regards to your research, how much have you had to learn and study about Area 51, or have you at all?
Yeah, I've done a lot. I mean, like the Middle North area is actually a wild horse sanctuary. In the southern area of it is like the Department of Defense headquarters, where everyone saw you can go online and look at the videos of the nuclear testing. So there's lots of things going on around there and lots to learn about. And especially, I think, for anyone that's trying to dive in to the UFO phenomenon, it's so legendary and kind of a part of like the mythology of everything going on that you have no choice, And so we are like we do focus on YouTube, and that video is almost at 1.3 million views. So I think there is something to giving people what they want to see, and people are interested in Area 51 and they want to know about it. So we do try to do that, like for the audience, to present stuff that they truly are interested in like that. So.
You mentioned moments ago that it's a little bit dangerous and intimidating being around there, especially when it starts to involve the camo dudes. I'm curious in regards to that, because a lot of people travel up there on a daily basis, and I'm sure the camo dudes get absolutely sick and tired of it, but then again, maybe not, because at least it gives them something to do. But in reality, do you think there's too many people out there that have made the black box and the road leading up to the signed entrance to Area 51 too much of a tourist attraction rather than being a secret military base that's not so secret anymore?
No, because like this area we're talking about is so small when you're talking about the entire facility. I mean, if you wanted to make a round trip and drive around the whole Nevada Test and Training Range, it'd probably take 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours probably, just to drive all the way around it. So just because there's like this one spot where you do have the tourists hanging out, it's, in these specific areas at the entrance of the black mailbox, it's not like you can see anything from there. You're still many miles away. And, the same could be said for like Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is on the Pacific Ocean. When people are watching the news and they see America doing like the ballistic missile interceptor tests and stuff like that, the Minuteman missiles, those things are coming from Vandenberg. Everybody knows about it. The government actually issues press releases about it sometimes. Me and Tracey have even visited once and took video of it. People can see that on our YouTube channel. We actually went and visited the base, went on the base, sat where the press sat, had like a military little escort and a military person watching us. In fact, when I was there, I got interviewed by the local television station. I believe it's Santa Maria or Santa Barbara. And the military official actually made me take my UFO Seekers hat off. So the local news TV station wasn't even allowed to have UFO stuff in this video that was coming out of the facility, and I knew they were really uncomfortable with our presence there, and they don't like that stigma being attached to it. But there are things that even though we know where these places are, it doesn't mean that it can't be secret anymore. So just remember that satellite technology was very advanced already back in, I'd have to say the 60s, 70s, and 80s. we were just looking at a picture the other day from, I believe, 1985 from Edwards Air Force Base, where one of our F-15 fighters had actually launched a rocket from the plane that went into space and shot a test satellite down in space. So we've been doing a lot of advanced stuff like that, surface to space missile testing, and a lot of stuff's underground. So with that new advanced satellite technology, everyone's taking pictures of everything everybody else has. So even when, I go on Google Earth and I am always looking at North Korea and China, and I want to just find stuff, that they have hidden. So I think everybody uses these technologies to look at the surface. And I'd have to say that 90 to 95% of the activity is actually happening underground, So when you go to a place like Edwards Air Force Base and they advertise that they have something like 13 million square feet of area for people to experiment, laboratories and hangar space and buildings, there isn't really 13 million square feet on the top when you look at it. So it's well known that there's lots of stuff happening underground, like underground roadways and underground railways. And, maybe I have or haven't had family who have been on some of these roadways. But we never really got into my background and my family or anything. But, I would just tell people that there's way more going on underground, which is of interest to me passionately. Because I really do, I really am interested in how much tax money has been spent on these projects. In fact, it's always been kind of a theory of mine that a lot of these places they took to are places where they get minerals from, like gold, silver, like borax, which is used to make like the space shuttle tiles, stuff like that. And, sometimes I wonder if the government has these areas and they're mining them underground and then selling it to fund black projects. Or did the military use our tax money to build underground shelters and bunkers everywhere where they have cities and other things going on underground with our tax money? And if something ever happens like a nuclear war, why don't we get invited to things where our tax money was used to build them? Does everyone get an invitation? So sometimes I just, I'm really interested with like encroachment, when the government takes more and more land and doesn't report it. So in one of our last videos, we actually took a trip to Fort Irwin to check out some petroglyphs and an aircraft weapons training range. And that's where we noticed that one of the border fences was actually hundreds of yards from where it used to be. And if you go on and start reading, so here in the United States, we have, like public maps. I'm sure they do everywhere, but just for us, we have what's called like a BLM map. Or a topo map, topography map, and we can go on and we can see where like the BLM owns some land or where the military owns it or what's separated for private sale. And when you start going and looking at these maps and looking at where some of these lines are, they kind of move the line and then move the line more and more, so we're really concerned about the growth of that and taking like national monuments or Native American history. So here in the United States, we actually have lots of Native American history that's locked up on these bases too. So, I think there's things of interest for everyone to kind of investigate and check out, that wouldn't even necessarily be involved with finding military secrets. There's actually like secrets about the history of us, so there's a lot there.
This leads me to a couple of questions from our audience, and this one that we're going to get to first is from one of our newer listeners, Venny. And I guess she used to have one of her relatives who used to work at Area 51. And in your study of the base, she's wondering if you were able to figure out how many levels there were to Area 51.
No. I would say over 30. I would say for sure it's over 30. And in fact, if you go around, a lot of people don't know, but if you go like northwest of that area, there's a lot of underground nuclear testing that happened where the government would actually drill holes into the ground like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 feet and drop a nuclear bomb down to see what would happen. And, for us or for anyone who can visit the area, you can actually go visit these little monuments where you come up on the top of a hill and all of a sudden there's a pipe sticking out of the ground with a cap on it and a little concrete monument that says they detonated a nuclear bomb at this kind of feet. You're not allowed to dig into the ground here for this much feet and from this distance from this spot. So what happened with these areas? I mean, if they're using like bombs and weapons to open up these underground areas, there are people who report to us that there's full-blown cities. I mean, full-blown cities underground. And that's what I personally think. There's full railroads, full roadways, and a lot of the stuff that we see happening is kind of just for us to see happening, Sometimes I really do wonder if like that Tigaboo Peak spot is open, for people like us to go up there and snap those pictures, but it's hard to catch an alien from 40 miles away. So it kind of always leaves you hanging and wondering, what's there. But undoubtedly, I would say it goes down more than 30 levels. And that's mostly because we've ran into a ex-sheriff out in this area. If you go south of Edwards Air Force Base, we actually met a sheriff who worked that area and had been into a Northrop Grumman facility, which is privately owned in the area. And he said that he knows for a fact that one went 42 levels underground. And granted, this isn't a guy who sent me a story. This is just someone we randomly met while we were out investigating something else that had nothing to do with this place. And the sheriff just kind of starts talking about some of the cool stories, over time of visiting that specific facility, having to sign like a disclosure form when you go in, So I heard as much as, it's 42 levels down. In that facility, he saw a German World War II aircraft, and that was it. So
either way, to go on the base, I mean, wouldn't that be a dream come true?
Oh my gosh. But I mean, they make it so difficult when you're there. So I would guarantee that, we have someone who works here at Edwards Air Force Base. For them, it's 15 checkpoints to get to their desk. 15 military checkpoints you have to get just to get to your desk. So if you were going to Area 51, it was actually started by Lockheed Martin and the CIA. So a lot of these facilities are actually owned, not owned, but the operations on the base are ran by private companies. So I think a lot of people are mistaken about the American military bases. We do have really good public-private relationships. So most of these places are owned by the federal government, but they're just administered by the federal government, and the hangars on base, the facilities are actually operated by individual private companies. In fact, when we went to Edwards Air Force Base, majority of the workers on the facility are civilians. And, you could drive down the flight runway and you're seeing people from Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, BAE Systems. And so Area 51 is no different. So the problem is when someone visits, you're visiting to work on your specific project. And because these things are private companies, you're not allowed to see what's going on, just because of competition and themselves protecting their own secrets. So you even have that secrecy between the people who are even on the base itself. And so everywhere you go, there's curtains. It's well known they blindfold people. So if you just happen to be not inside, one of these locked doors and a project needs to roll by, which might be some new unmanned drone, or let's even say it's a UFO, they're going to you're going to have military officers who are always with you, and they're going to blindfold you or put you behind a curtain. If a project has to roll by, it's not uncommon for them to kind of come herd all of you and put you into a corner and put curtains around you for an hour while something has to roll by.
Have you ever talked to anybody who works at Area 51?
I have not talked to anyone directly. It always seems to be, someone who has heard the stories in a back room, and that's because people's pensions rely on it. In fact, my own dad worked at Plant 42, which is in Palmdale and located by Edwards Air Force Base. Plant 42 is actually where you could find like Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. And the black projects for Northrop Grumman. And so that's where they're just being manufactured. And it's kind of well known that that's where it happens. When you go to this facility, there are camo dudes just like Area 51, but it's not popular, for people to go there. It's kind of in the middle of a city. But you have like the camo dudes running around in Dodge Rams. And so my father's worked there. He worked there in the 80s, worked on the B-1 bomber. Worked on like electrical systems, and he still doesn't tell me anything that goes on, and never would, because it seems like most of these people who are in there, they have those pensions. They're all patriots, So usually we just kind of hear a story through, hey, my relative was there, my dad worked there, and then I'm sure like once someone finally passes away and there's no risk involved, that's kind of when the stories come out, when there's not much risk left in these things being known. So in fact, I actually have a family member who was a Treasury secret agent that worked for the Treasury Department for 25 years. My great uncle was head of the Navy Reserves here in the United States and was a Rear Admiral. And I've even had one of my uncles served in Vietnam. And then, like I said, my dad worked at Plant 42. One of my uncles worked at NASA for over 20 years and worked on Apollo missions, retired from NASA. But from all of these people around, you still don't really hear, those secrets. It's not, I think that's definitely like one of Americans' unique things too, is like when it comes to national security and, type loose lips, sink ships. This is definitely one of those places where it applies. I mean, if you go back to the 40s when we were going through the world wars, I mean, they had signs up, loose lips, sink ships, and people would turn people in for divulging secrets. So I think kind of with the new generation, like my generation and the one before, we're more about like, the Freedom of Information Act and kind of getting past these squabbles from the past, and moving forward into kind of a more intellectual future, which includes like space, interplanetary travel, things like that. We want it to be like Star Trek, where we make a replicator and we're replicating food or using free energy and getting away from fossil fuels. So I think that's kind of what's changing, is people wanting more answers to what's going on, especially since we know that the government had lied about so many things in the past.
Getting to your video footage from Tikaboo Peak, your video shows what looks to be a lot of aircraft hangars on the surface of Area 51. Now, we also have to expect that a lot of those different buildings are just cover-ups for what happens, as many people say, from Bob Lazar to other people who've come out, have said that it's just a facade and all the action either takes place underneath the ground or in the sides of the mountains that are camouflaged.
Yeah,
very good.
But that's not necessarily true at all. We're very frugal here with like balancing budgets and utilizing all this stuff, especially when it comes to like military or government buildings. We're very astute, at maximizing costs. And so I can guarantee you 100%, Dave, that in every single one of those hangars is something that is secret and classified. And the reason there is so many hangars is because there's so many different projects with so many different companies. You could have one no-name company who signs on for a contract to do a specific unmanned craft for a short range with this type of missile, and then you have another aircraft which is for long distance strikes carrying this type of missile. Then you have manned crafts, you have vertical flight, horizontal takeoff, helicopters, jet engines, rocket testings, rocket sleds. So there is a lot of things still happening on the surface, and especially at Area 51 is a place where they do a lot of replicating foreign dogfights. So for anyone who does like a little more hardcore research, you're going to start to learn that Area 51 more than likely is a place where they also store foreign aircrafts they've replicated or managed to capture. And they're going to run tests on our aircrafts against those ones in that specific airspace. And so don't doubt, too, that sitting in one of those hangars could be some kind of like Russian MiG,
And that would make total sense because, you do have to see what the competition is flying, especially in military. If somebody happens to smuggle a MiG-29 out of Russia or North Korea or something like that, of course you're going to jump on taking that aircraft. It only makes sense.
Correct. And you have a mix of nuclear weapons because that facility is kind of intertwined with like our nuclear program, so don't think that it couldn't include that some of those specific aircrafts are actually doing like live testing with what could be nuclear weapons, man. And that's the reason they do it in a place like that is because it is so secluded and there is so much space that if something did happen, it would be a minimum risk as opposed to it being in a place like Edwards Air Force Base, which is only, if you flew in an airplane like 30 minutes from LA, so it's a lot more feasible to be doing these high risk, in fact, I think if anybody keeps up with American news, there was a huge story that came out of the drive in the war zone where a craft actually crashed in Area 51 like a week ago, and it's still unknown what crashed there, and the military hasn't let anybody know what crashed there. And so that's what we have occurring is lots of black projects, and that's where they fly them, because if it crashes, it isn't going to be a civilian who recovers it. And in this day and age of cameras and video cameras and cell phones, if something comes down in a civilian area or civilian airspace, somebody's going to get it, or come across it.
When you're going through your video footage of Area 51, are you trying, and realistically it's the only thing we can do, are you trying to assume what's in the buildings or what's there, or is it just too incomprehensible to even try and fathom?
I guess like for fun, me and Tracey like doggedly love the Air Force. We love airplanes. We love that fast travel. We're like obsessed with aircraft. When we went to Edwards Air Force Base, man, I got a nice F-35 Lightning II t-shirt that I sport around. But I don't think we go that far. We are more interested in learning about if there's UFOs or like a UFO type craft. So we aren't even getting that deep, and it's not, I guess, for our search and our journey, nothing would be beneficial. I would say, if we're going to speculate on that, it'd be more like for the war zone in the drive. That's kind of what they do, is follow more of like the aviation stuff. If we happen to be out there and snap pictures of jets, and anyone who follows us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Pinterest, for anyone who follows us on those things, you're going to see us post pictures of military craft. We caught an F-35 one time with a Joint Strike Missile when they were first testing, I believe it's a South Korean Joint Strike Missile, and stuff like that, and we love to post when we catch things in the air, but, we're not necessarily looking to reveal those on-the-ground secrets. And in fact, anyone who does research on the military's own social media practices, it's never good to show where the troops are, or when we have equipment on a base, to be showing the enemy specifically in detail things which might be getting prepped or prepared for something like a war, you know. So that's why in our like video footage, we're more focused on like the runways, looking at like aircraft, you know, and not trying to like dive deep into, you know, chasing like the employee bus, you know. So you won't find us chasing the employee bus. That's just like a no-no for us. We don't like bother any of these people or like want to make it difficult for them to go to work. And it has nothing to do with UFOs. So we're trying to like see things and document things. And I promise you, Dave, when the lights turn out and it's nighttime, I bet that's when those hangars open up, bro, and everything starts flying around there, you know. But now we're talking about having a hard time catching it. You know, you're going to need some extremely detailed thermal binoculars or infrared binoculars or something like that. And that kind of technology is reserved for like the military, the FBI, and police departments. So here down in the United States, it's real difficult to get a hold of advanced like thermal imaging. We do have it on like drones, and like our fire departments use it when fighting fires. So they'll dispatch like Reaper drones that have the FLIR technology, which is combining thermal and infrared, which is way beyond anything we could get in the private sector of civilians. So,
was there ever a thought of you guys staying the night up at Tickaboo Creek or Peak just to see what you were able to capture at night?
Definitely, but the problem is the weather, and there was major thunderheads building up, and there had been some rain the day before, so we didn't even want a chance staying up there for that at all. Not to mention we ended up being low on water. I mean, luckily Tracey made it back to the car first and like came back to me and gave me some water, because I had a hard time making it back down with the big pack and everything. So I think it's definitely feasible, you know, but then I think you're kind of treading, you know, I really think you're kind of treading rough waters there. If we're talking about like the gray areas of filming a military base, I think it's kind of way different to hike to a peak like that, snap some pictures and some videos and make your way back down. And just from my perspective and experience, I think if you start camping outside of a military installation for a long time, that's when they get upset. And in fact, that's what had happened when we camped outside the entrance for 24 hours. They didn't like that. And in fact, they called the sheriff. And if anybody watches our video, he asks, hey, they called us because someone was camping out here. So they don't like that very much, you know, and I wouldn't put out, you know, I really think that when that camera that's up on Tickaboo Peak, I've heard it's a 40 times zoom lens. So it's like you know, it can move around 360 degrees, and then it also has a 40 times zoom. So I have no doubts they could have seen us coming, and then only certain things are out there, you know. So if there's UFOs hanging out there, you know, they might see us coming beforehand, and that's when they go back inside the hangars. And I wouldn't doubt at night the same thing happens, you know, like when we camped outside the entrance. I wouldn't doubt at all that those camo guys are relaying, you know, to the military base what's going on, and so certain activity doesn't happen. And in fact, if, you know, you go read like a military pilot guide, let's say like you join the Air Force, they hand, you know, and you're going to start testing aircraft over the United States, they hand you like this guide, and it starts telling you detailed information about people on the ground where you're flying. So you may be doing like a flight over a forest area, and this pilot guide gets so detailed, it'll tell you that a bird hunting club is there September 1st through the 14th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on days where it's sunny. And it'll tell you to avoid these areas and limit your noise exposure. You know, so I do know that the military is that detailed in knowing everything that's going on. I definitely know that they follow what we're doing and watch what we're doing. You know, so a lot of the times, like before we're going out to do something, I limit my internet activity for what we're going to do. And even in like phone conversations or online conversations, I don't even talk about, I don't Google search it, and we just go and execute. because I know they're that detailed, and here in America, it's nothing. They can track everything, all the Google searches, all the phone calls, emailing, Skyping, Snapchatting, whatever you want to do. I mean, it's mandated here in the United States that these companies put back doors in for people like the NSA. So, they have free range here to monitor everyone's activity, and especially for what we're doing, I mean, because of what we do, I mean, I think they have a full right to pay attention to what we're doing, and I have enough consciousness to not go on with like that Australian TV show where I know that it starts getting into these rough waters where I don't like what we're talking about, so.
Absolutely. But next time you go up there, let me know, because we'll make sure that you get a Spaced Out Radio t-shirt. Wear it backwards so that way they can see the logo at least, if you don't mind.
Or I could just slap it on the weather station. I mean, what are they going to do? You're up in Canada, man.
Yes. So we're supposed to be safe up here. You never know. I can't even see through my window right now. It's all barricaded with firewood right now. So Carl's going to have a hell of a time making it through here if he wants to have another peek through in the window. But I'm all about firewood right now. Not interested in the games that these aliens are playing or these men in black or whatever. Just come to the door, knock, let's have a cup of coffee, and let's see where it goes. That's at least what I say. But then again, that's me acting tough on a microphone rather than actually,
You know what, Dave? But a question you asked earlier. You know what? I do know someone who's worked at Area 51. The thing is, though, is it was just a pilot. So it was someone who was flying in for the day and then executing projects or testing craft, and then leaving. And in fact, it's a good friend of mine I grew up with who joined the service when we were young. And he tells me I'm crazy. That what I do, when he was there, he didn't see nothing, didn't experience anything. But that's kind of what you're going to get when you're in the military. First thing is, when you're in the military, you don't research secret stuff in the military. That's number one, because that's going to get you court-martialed and kicked out. And then number two is the militaries need to know. So even like the President of the United States, if he doesn't need to know about a specific project, then he doesn't know. And every position in the military or in these projects is the same. You only know what you need to know. So like I told him, I've had like family, deep inside that deep state, I guess you'd call it. And I could just promise you there's more going on than just what's on the surface, with unmanned technology and drone technology. There's lots of conversations Americans have about the future of manned aircraft. We have lots of debates on why they even exist. Why do we still have pilots in these aircraft? But the American military is still committed to being the leader in manned aircraft. So that's kind of why these projects are still going on. But it's nothing compared to the past. When you used to go to these facilities in the past, there would be tons of pilots, tons of planes, but it's not that way anymore. There's just a handful of pilots or a handful of planes at each facility on the surface. They're just training the best guys, giving them that best live training or war game training, or the best test pilots are testing, one pilot is testing the single aircraft. If anybody remembers the Polecat, which was made by Lockheed Martin, the Polecat actually crashed in the Department of Defense area back in 2007, I believe it was. And the project was a wing stealth drone. So it was an unmanned drone with stealth capabilities. Just kind of looks like the B-2 wing bomber. And it crashed. They didn't release any details about why it crashed or what happened. But when they talked more about the project, they said that only 60 people in the whole company even knew the project existed and had knowledge and had hands-on work on the project. Only 60 people in the whole company of Lockheed Martin. So that's like how compartmentalized everything is, compartmentalized everything is in the military. So, you know, I've even had, you know, family members in SEAL Team 6. And, you know, there's just so much going on that everyone individually does, you know. So I had like a family member who responded to the Fukushima disaster, almost like an Army Ranger brigade that just shows up out of nowhere, like out of the ocean. You know, all of a sudden, like a boat shows up. You know, the tsunami wave happens, right? And you have that disaster going on over there, and then all of a sudden, these American soldiers come out of the ocean. You know, and they're there helping you with food or with, you know, securing a place to live or providing security because things, you know, electricity's out or there's no police in the area. So there is more going on with like what our military does, and it's not always like in a negative connotation or like has, you know, negative things associated with it. So I would definitely tell people to keep searching. There's so many people in the service, from the Coast Guard to the Navy to the Army to the Air Force, who have told us stories about things they've seen or experienced while they were in the service, lights they've seen in the sky, or underground facilities they've been, but they're not going to tell us where they are or how deep they go or what's in there. You know, and people should continue to try to unlock these mysteries because there's so much going on out there that I wish that I could live 100, 200 years from now when we finally find out what some of these underground bases are and where they are.
I understand. And, you know, it's the curiosity that keeps us going, especially with Area 51. I mean, I'm 2,000 miles away. I'm very curious to see what is happening there. I'm very curious. It's not that I need to know, you know, for the sake of our great and powerful Canadian military. It has nothing to do with that, you know. I mean, I'm pretty sure our 30-year-old CF-18 Hornets are not going to be able to compete with what's ever at Area 51. But it's still that entire curiosity that I think a lot of us have, you know, in seeing or knowing what is possibly there. And you know what? The funny part about it is, I don't think anybody really cares about the Black Ops. The only thing anybody cares about Area 51 is whether or not there's aliens there.
That's so true, man. That is so true. You know, all the comments that we get and everything is always centralized around, you know, that alien UFO question every time. And if I have to send royalties to Will Smith, I will. So.
But it's the truth. Like, I don't care what tomorrow's fighter looks like. You know, as much as I love my military aircraft, I haven't seen an F-35 or an whatever it is, fly yet. You know, I haven't. I want to.
Right.
You know,
right.
I really do. Or the F-22 Raptor,
but that's where, you know, if we were like going to go UFO hunting or seeking, and I was going to take you along with me and we were going to do, you know, I was going to give you some advice on where to go, it wouldn't be near the military base. You know, it would be to get away in somewhere like where you live and go to where no one is and nothing flies, because that way if we can catch something or see something, it makes it that much more extraordinary, you know, and lessens it to be something military. And at the same time, if we were an alien species or an alien being, we would be going to a rural place. We would not be just floating over a city, you know, because we wouldn't want the exposure. We want to make sure that we stayed hidden, weren't influencing evolution or influencing technology, or making ourselves a god to the species that's there. You know, so I really think that, and from government people I've talked to, you know, I've even had like government people tell me this, you know, think like an alien. How would the alien think? Where would they go? What would they be looking at? And that's kind of how we have formulated our seeking, is to go to these amazing places or these rural places where no one are, or where no one is, to try to see these things. So, if anybody can get out to somewhere where it's really dark and you can see the Milky Way really good, hey, that's a great spot to do some sky watching and hopefully spot a UFO.
Wonderful, because above my house right now, I got the Milky Way.
Oh, so lucky.
Yeah, you just kind of nailed it right on the head. The only time it really gets screwed up is if we got a full moon or the northern lights are out. Then it's
those northern lights are terrible.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, they're just so terrible. I'm not gonna lie. I check for them every night. There's something about them dancing in the sky, man, that looks really, really cool. It is a beautiful sight indeed. When you were at Tickaboo Creek, or any time, or I keep calling it Creek, I don't know why, Peak, or any other time you have traveled towards Area 51, have you ever seen any of the Janet jets?
Yes. In fact, in our episode 5, we caught one of those Janet jets coming into Area 51. In fact, it was the first video or footage of a Janet flight coming in to Groom Lake that I had ever seen. Because typically, if you're going on to watch with radar and watch those jets go into the base, you're going to see them go into the Tonopah side. You're never going to see the transponders of the ones who go into the Groom Lake side. So yes, there are flights going from Las Vegas, probably Los Angeles, that are coming into the base on a daily basis.
Does that kind of bring an eerie sensation, knowing that the Janet jets are basically an unmanned or an unnamed airline that is specific towards Area 51?
Yeah, and in fact, in one of our videos, I was watching on radar, and one of the Janet jets came up as a Scandinavian Airlines plane. And so I don't know if it's Scandinavian Airlines who is operating the Janet jets, and some of these Janet jets only have 2 people on them. So it's an entire jumbo plane with 2 passengers on it, who are the super engineers from an amazing company. So the amount of money that's being spent on whatever is going on there is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible.
How did you find out that some of these flights only have 2 people?
Because I've had reports and talked to people who work on the projects. And so for instance, it was a Magnavox employee working on, I know I had told this story once before I had been on here. It was a Magnavox employee who was embedding communication inside of the light spectrum. So they were trying to send out interstellar communications to an alien race, and so you'd want the communication to go as fast as it could, so you needed to go the speed of light. And so that was his project, was embedding verbal communication basically inside of the light spectrum and sending it out at the speed of light into space to communicate with aliens. And so this gentleman was so high up, so smart, whatever we want to say, that he had a dedicated Janet flight that would just come pick him up. And some of these projects they're spending billions on, so it's just a drop in the bucket to send a jumbo jet to pick someone up every day.
That is one expensive flight. Must. I wonder if they get fuel points every time they fill up one of those Janet jets. You gotta wonder. You gotta wonder. Honestly, I want to see how many points they have. Maybe we could get a free hat.
No, the CIA probably owns Chevron or Exxon, so it's probably just the CIA filling up the CIA's plane.
Well, I get you. But either way, I want to know what those pilots get for those, air miles. Can you claim my air miles on a Janet jet? That's the other one we need to know. We only got about 2.5 minutes here before we have to go to our final break of the night. We're talking Area 51 with Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers. What is some of the verbal comments or reactions that you got about this footage? Never mind from the media, but your fellow ufologists.
It was good, but, the fellow ufologists are kind of I'd have to say we're kind of an outside group, so I think it's real hard to find someone who doesn't kind of knock us for what we do. And I know a lot of people don't like YouTube or the platform, or they don't like, we do like full production videos. So I'm shooting drone video, taking still photographs. I'm doing time lapses with like star trails. We're doing night photographs. I'm also using like full spectrum thermal. We've been working with Geiger counters, radio frequency scanners, stuff like that. But for the most part, we get knocked a lot by like the UFO community. So, I think a lot of the stuff we do is just for our fans, and people who are interested in these topics, want to see the places, and it's, me and Tracey, we're on a journey, boyfriend and girlfriend. And I think we're as curious as everybody else about, these subjects and these topics. But I think because of the internet and because of fake videos, it's impossible to trust people sometimes. So UFO Seekers is really based on our credibility, so it's me and Tracey who are going out, we're covering these things, we're shooting it ourselves, editing it ourselves. And that's what I think in the future that's what I think viewers of these topics will herd to. Is trusting the people who are delivering the content. And so that's what it's all based on. We're not showing other people's videos and speculating on what it is. When someone watches one of our videos, for the most part, it's just what we've experienced.
Tim, I'm going to get you to hold on right there as we're going to step out for our final break of the night. Tim Doyle is our guest from UFOseekers.com. I highly suggest you go to his website after this show, of course. Never during this show, but after the show or before. And check out his great video that he got from Tickaboo Peak on Area 51. It is some of the clearest images of Area 51 that have ever been produced. It's amazing. I've looked at the video probably 9-10 times since he's posted it, just trying to look for little different things, see if I recognize anything, even though I wouldn't. But it's human curiosity that we continue on with your questions and more talk of UFOs, Area 51, and whatever else comes up right after the break. We got 60 minutes to go on the mighty SOR, 2/3 done, 1/3 to go. It's going to be a good time. Stick around as we got more right after this.
We're getting strange on Saturday nights. Hi there, this is Dave Cruz, and each Saturday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I will take you on a tour of the weird and obtuse on Spaced Out Saturdays, from aliens to Sasquatch and every tinfoil hat in between. We got you covered. Join us at spacedoutradio.com for Spaced Out Saturdays. See you there.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need. Only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with UFO Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio. And on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Patrick Roddy is going to join us. We're going to get into the chemtrail conspiracy. What's happening in the skies above? Are they spraying us? Are they not? What is happening? Everything gets going at spacedoutradio.com at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans at over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We are also live on KTLK, The Fringe FM. We are also live on Renegade Talk Radio on WQEE. We are also on the High Plains Talk Radio Network. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Safarkanate. Safarkanate is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night, right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you could do so on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with us live during the show as well. You could give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also ask to join the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook. That would be really cool if you joined our group there. Good people in there. We're also on Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. You can listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live, tune us in on TuneIn, or you can also download and subscribe our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can also rock out to some Bumblefoot, read the Encounter online. You can watch some great videos from UFO Seekers and Contact TV, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, everything at spacedoutradio.com. The third Monday of the month, we talk to Tim Doyle from UFOseekers.com. Tim is a ufologist trying to figure out what is going on. Lately, he has been focusing on Area 51. Tim, welcome back.
Thank you, buddy.
Hey, I got a quick question. Joe's been waiting for a while for this one, and he is asking, Tim, have you ever been over the hill to Olancha, just outside of China Lake Naval Weapons Center, the Navy's Area 51, to check out what's going on there?
I have been. I believe he's talking about the north side, correct? Yeah, I believe so. We've definitely been up there by Owens Lake, by Darwin. And for anyone who knows the area well, kind of south of Bishop, you'll find like a communication satellite array, or like a big dish satellite array, which is like a big radio array where I believe they're listening to signals from deep space, and then also doing some type of radio astronomy, I think. And the mountains, north of the area he's talking about, and then east of Bishop, which is north of China Lake, is where SETI would set up all the time and actually do UFO investigations. So it's a very highly traveled area. And China Lake is actually on the backside of the Sierra Nevada mountains. So just kind of north of there is where you'll find Lake Tahoe and Yosemite National Park and places like that. So it's a very beautiful area, which may be why it attracts extraterrestrial beings. There's lots of UFO sightings and abduction stories that come from up there.
Do you have any you can share with us?
Yes. In fact, at Mono Lake, there was a gentleman there back in the 70s at Mono Lake. And anyone from this area kind of knows that. It's east of Lake Tahoe and south of Reno, Nevada, but in California. And a gentleman actually saw a craft come out of Mono Lake and take off into the atmosphere. And for anyone who's watched or paid attention to our YouTube channel, we actually did an episode on Walker Lake, which is located a little northeast of this area we're talking about. And a lot of people hypothesize that the underground hole that Jimmy Church broke, that's off the coast of Malibu, California, it's like an underground chamber which leads into California through like faults and openings, like caves that are underground, and leads all the way into this Lake Tahoe, Mono Lake, Bishop, and then up to Walker Lake, where they actually had an underwater naval warfare center. And they used to test like underwater weaponry. People think they tested underground submarines there and could actually navigate underneath the shelf of California, basically. And in fact, China Lake would be part of that because, of course, Nevada and this area is elevated higher than the ocean. So you'd need like a raise in temperature of the water to get water to raise up in elevation. And so on China Lake, that's where we find the Coso Range, where there are active geothermal vents. In fact, there's actually a geothermal power plant located on the China Lake base. And so those geothermals create a perfect scenario if you had underground chambers for water to raise up to places like Nevada.
This past, I believe it was Friday night. Was it Thursday or Friday? We actually had 2 UFO reports going on in my area about 30 miles apart at the same time. One was just over my area. Dawn, one of our listeners, had seen it. Hi, Dawn. I know you're listening in. I'm waving at you right now because I know you're close by. I'm waiting for you to wave back, Dawn. Anyhow, she has seen what looks to be like a red, white, and blue type flashing in the sky, and this one was actually sending almost like a rainbow type beam out from it. Have you ever heard of that or seen that?
Yes, in fact, it's very common here in the Lake Isabella area and like Weldon. It's called onyx, bodfish. There have been reports of a green orb that can be anywhere from 5 feet above the ground up into like a low altitude in the air that actually shoots like a green beam, like a green tractor beam. I've also received a story once of the triangle UFO, like the famous black triangle UFO shooting like a white beam. But I definitely never have heard it being rainbow colored. So that's very interesting. You know, now we're covering different kinds of light, because when we're looking at lights, you know, it can explain like the heat of it, you know. So if we see something like a meteor, an asteroid, or something flying through the atmosphere and burning up, or we see like a jet engine. I mean, of course, when we see like a perfectly blue light, it's like the hottest, perfectly burning, cleanest burning form of like energy that's creating that light. So, you know, if we're seeing something like in a rainbow pattern, it's very interesting.
Dawn is saying in our chat room it was also seen in another community very close by as well, in a community called Buffalo Creek. The other one that was seen, it happened 2 nights in a row, and this lady who wants to remain anonymous had contacted me on Facebook, and they were seeing red, blue, and green lights. Now, at first, when they woke up, because they live in the middle of the wilderness, there's only mountains and a lake in that area, and at first they thought the police were at the end of their driveway, until they realized it wasn't a car and the lights were off the ground. And it happened exactly 2 nights in a row. And it's kind of freaking them out as well. Have you ever had the red, blue, and green lights captured?
Well, typically that would be like a manned craft. I mean, that's perfect. Red, blue, and green. You would see that all the time. But in the scenario they're talking about in the place they lived, I mean, of course it is completely abnormal, and would be very unique. In fact, if they're seeing it like hover, and they're getting no sound, that makes it even more strange, because now we're talking about propulsion systems that, you know, the military hasn't even acknowledged exist, even if they do exist. So it does lay you heavy, me, the way I'm hearing it, that it is something, you know, not of this world and would be very interesting. And the fact that, you know, them seeing it repetitively, man, that is like gold. I mean, that's something that we're always hoping for down here, is to get a sighting and that it has like a reoccurrence so we have a chance to catch it. But if I were them, yeah, I would be concerned. I would probably have some kind of like self-defense ready to go, and I would do some, you know, walking through in my head about what I'm going to do. And also I'd probably, you know, set some trap cameras out there and try to catch something if it's coming low to the ground. And two, we'd want to know if there's occupants. Are the occupants leaving? Because we've had something similar close to Bakersfield here in a city called Pine Mountain Club, which is actually a mountain city. It's at about 5,000 feet. It's just below Mount Pinos, which used to be the religious center for the Chumash Indians in this area. And Pine Mountain Club is built just below that mountain peak. And one night, it's funny, this little town's actually part of like the Federal Witness Protection Program. So it's like a weird town to visit. Like nobody talks to anybody when you're there, but it looks like a perfect community where like every lawn is mowed perfect and like everyone has a nice car. So it's not known as a place for, I would just say like a Looney Tunes type of person. And in fact, I asked that question to someone there in the store when we went to investigate this sighting. So there was a woman, and it was nighttime, and she noticed a low-flying object. But what she saw was a white light. It isn't colored like had been reported to you. But this one was white, and they live in an area where there's the trees grow like 30, maybe to 40, 50 feet. And so this white light is hovering across at the top of the tree lines, and she lives inside of a forested area, but she can see like this light moving over the trees. And she sees it land in an open meadow. So in Pine Mountain Club, there's this one area where there's like no trees. I don't know if they did logging there, but we actually did an episode. So if anybody wants to see the location, see drone footage of it, me and Tracey actually hiked to this specific spot. So this lady says that the white object actually landed out in the meadow. And she was so interested and intrigued because, of course, it's abnormal activity, that she goes out her back door and she makes her way onto the porch. And of course, around her house isn't the trees. The trees are like 20, 30 feet away from the house, probably for like fire reasons or something. And she looks into the trees, and of course it's nighttime, and she literally sees an alien being standing in the trees and like halfway hiding behind a tree. So the alien, which is, I guess, like a typical gray alien sighting, but a real short alien. I actually created kind of like an animated recreation of it in our video. So this lady sees the alien and, of course, gets scared to death and runs back in her house. And she says, as she's running back, running into the house, she can see that the alien took off the same way she did. So they were kind of like both startled, as she says. So this lady actually reported this to MUFON. MUFON came out and did an investigation. In fact, one of the ways we learned about it is there is a MUFON YouTube video from Los Angeles MUFON coming to investigate. But we just kind of took it to the next step with like the production we do and the photography. We took pictures, the drone photography, on the ground video, and then we also went up and investigated Mount Pinos. So me and Tracey also hiked all the way to the top of Mount Pinos, which was cool in and of itself. And when we got to the mountain peak there, which is just above Pine Mountain Club, what do you know? We run into a weather station, but this one has some kind of like power facility with like generator fans, and these brown buildings, and the fence line around it says it's a military facility. So you need permission from the installation commander if you want to access this property. So this one isn't left to any doubts. This weather station area we found is legitimately part of the military complex. And this mountain peak lies about halfway in between Vandenberg and Edwards Air Force Base. So I wouldn't put it out of question that this facility is also used for like interbase communications between the two facilities, and probably also for radar tracking, because it is military airspace in this area. And so that's where, when we do our investigations, we really try to make sure we're looking at any military angles that could be a part of it. So we spent the night up there and we did sky watching. And Mount Pinos is well known for telescope enthusiasts to come out. So if anybody ever wants to check out really cool civilian telescopes, college or university telescopes, this place, Mount Pinos, is located about 1.5 to 2 hours north of Los Angeles. And that's where all of those telescope nerds come from. And they hang out at the top of Mount Pinos, which is called the Nordic Summit. And that's where they actually have like a nice paved parking lot, and it's a really dark sky, and they do observations when there's no moon out. And so also I went and asked locals, so we went, we hung out in Pine Mountain Club for a little while. It was really weird. Pine Mountain Club was one of the only areas where no one talked to us, because typically, like being in the UFO Seekers car, you get, somebody coming up, hey, is this serious? Are you serious? Do you really do this? But that didn't happen in this area. We didn't even get looks. It was the strangest thing. It's like being in that movie Kindergarten Cop with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It felt like you were living in that Oregon town where the lady was living. But I did go talk to someone in the store there, and I audio recorded it, and didn't let the person know why I was there. Of course, I never reveal their identity or anything. And I asked this local person who had lived in the town forever, hey, do you know this lady that witnessed this UFO sighting? What do you think about this lady? And of course, the guy had nothing negative to say. It was all positive. He said he knew the lady, actually knew her, and said she's of normal mind, very sane, and not somebody who would make up this kind of story. In fact, the lady's identity, I couldn't track that down or anything. And of course, in all of our videos, we never reveal anyone's identity. So if anybody sees us talking to someone, you're never going to see their face. And I'm never really going to give you their names, because a lot of people get stigmatized by these kind of events. And I want to protect people. I don't want people to ruin their life. And when it becomes real difficult out in society when we start telling people that we've seen these things or we might believe in these things, and then just trying to have normal day-to-day conversations, because some people really do take it personal. I've definitely met people before where just saying the fact we're UFO seekers is kind of an insult to them, because they may have a religious belief or everyone has their own beliefs. And sometimes it doesn't quite fit with the theology they have or something like that. So I do find it difficult for just a regular person to start telling people, and I don't even advocate that. It's kind of better just to report it to, if someone has a ghost experience, report it to Dave at Spaced Out Radio, and he'll hook you up with a paranormal group, or hook you up with UFO Seekers if you've seen a UFO. And that's probably the better avenue. Maybe you can have more of a private interaction with one of these investigative groups who can help you find answers and give you relief. And especially in an alien abduction scenario, a lot of the people are kind of tormented by the experience. And so it's nice to kind of let them get it off their chest and listen to it, but at the same time not, trying to monetize a traumatic event in someone's life. I almost feel like what are those, like a media person out covering a hurricane, and sometimes we're watching the hurricane coverage going, maybe you should step out and like help one of the people, So I think, it's good to keep a mentality about trying to help people rather than just catching like the video of it. There's more to it, and there's real people behind the scenes whose lives are affected by it. And that's what we're trying to investigate, is trying to help people find answers to these things. We'd love to document these things so people can't be called crazy anymore.
See, up here in Canada, our military bases, especially when it comes to the Air Force, are very sparse. The only Air Force base in British Columbia is on Vancouver Island in a town called Comox. And then you have to go to Edmonton, or just north of Edmonton, which is at CFB Cold Lake, Alberta, which is about 4 or 5 times, maybe even up to 10 times the size of Area 51. And the the Nellis Air Force Range.
Okay,
it's a big huge place. So you're looking at a width or a span of almost, I'm going to say 1,500 kilometers. So let's say 1,000, 1,100 miles in between the two military Air Force bases. So up here, because we're in a northern area, the only flight line that we are truly on is any flight coming across the pond and going over to, say, Calgary or Toronto, maybe even Montreal. And those flights maybe happen a couple times a day, if that. Okay? So when we have lights in the sky and there's no active airport in this area, even though I have a runway, a private runway, literally about a mile away, if that, okay, it's still not an active airport. So when we get lights in the sky here, especially at night, where there is no active airport and those lights have no sound, we're definitely looking at something that is a little bit surreal, and the chances of it being anything of military value, in my opinion, and my opinion only, would be slim to none.
Right. But I would definitely say that, and always tossing in the chance that the government is testing some kind of UFO technology on some of these bases, and that's second episode of season 1 in the X-Files is Mulder going out to that place in Idaho, and him and Scully stand on that hillside outside the military base, and they're watching the government test the UFOs, and the whole premise of the episode is the pilot can't take the G-forces and what's going on. So one of the test pilots ends up developing a sickness from testing the UFO technology. So it would definitely always leave that in there. If you're seeing something like that up there, and it could be so radical, yet it could be like our government's hiding this technology because that's just the way they are. In fact, like looking at the way the FCC regulates radio frequencies and like the internet. The internet was a Department of Defense program that was made by the American military. That's kind of, the governments are always 30, 40 years ahead, and they're limiting what's being released. And that was partly of the reason we were so interested in starting UFO Seekers, was really trying to understand like how much we're technologically oppressed by the people who are managing everything. Like where's that line between, well, we needed the internet before the public needed the internet. Well, why would that be? That doesn't make any sense. You should have just released it right away, and especially when it was our tax money which funded the project to begin with. So I think there's always, and what you're saying about the size of that range, And I have been getting reports from Canada. I do get like reports from Canada all the time of this area or that area, this valley or that valley, places to go and skywatch to see activity like you're talking about, because I think as the development of video cameras and cell phones and all these things, the governments have to go farther and farther away to do these types of tests with the experimental projects, you know. And now we're talking about something UFO Seekers is interested in. If these things are extraterrestrial influenced in how they've been created, you know, is this a craft that crashed at Roswell, then got stored at Area 51, and now it's being test flown up in Canada at a secret place, you know, because we're allies together, you know. And I know, and I follow Lockheed Martin and like their social media, and I'm telling you, they do a lot of stuff with Canada all the time. So I see a lot of posts and like air show stuff. I mean, awesome stuff of jet fighters with that nice maple leaf tattooed on the side of it.
Yes.
You know, so don't doubt that there's a lot of these secret experiments or these secret projects being run up
Absolutely.
there. And don't doubt that they might be UFOs.
Well, I can tell you this. Back in the 1980s, when the cruise missile was being developed, it was tested at Cold Lake because the fighters that were trying to intercept the cruise missile when they were testing it needed a long-range facility in order to try and see if they could shoot these missiles down. I don't know the success rate, if they were able to do it at all, or how the cruise missile fared. That's neither here nor there. But I do know that that base always has some sort of American presence on it because, let's face it, it's a great place to test grounds. It's a proving ground. You know, Alaska, it's a short flight from there. If they're stationed at Elmendorf or someplace like that. Right? So there is a lot of relay in between both militaries as they work and connect together as one. So Cold Lake would be the perfect place if the Americans or the American military ever wanted to hide something. The populace is slim to none in that range.
Yeah.
They'd
be all over that.
Absolutely. You could fly Janet jets in and out of there without anybody even blinking an eye. Because nobody would see them.
Right.
You know,
and that's great, you know, and definitely with, you know, America like being on the forefront of expenditures for military and for defense for us and for our allies. You know, I think that allows a lot of foreign countries not to have to invest so much monetarily into these programs and not to necessarily have as many bases, because, you know, a place like the Nevada Test and Training Range is where we're intaking foreign pilots. In fact, we just had a plane crash in Arizona, and come to find out, it was someone from Saudi Arabia and someone high up in the military in Saudi Arabia who was flying the plane. You know, so a lot of our facilities are being used for like those test operations, which then Canada doesn't have to do because like the Lockheed Martin main place is here. So they can all kind of come here and meet with the companies who are even providing, you know, the weaponry and the jets to our allies. And so I think that's what you see. You know, you're not going to see a lot of Canadian type stuff because a lot of it's like America kind of hiding behind the scenes, you know. So and that's what we like to do, man. We love to like protect people. I think anyone would find if they hung out, you know, like with Americans like band together, we're like hang out with the underdog. We see somebody getting beat up in the street, like, you know, we're going to run up and protect them. It was like that stabbing on that train in London that one time, and those American guys jumped in and stopped it. And that's, you know, we're the cowboys, man, and we're always going to be the cowboy types. We come in on the horses with guns blazing, you know, and we're not so concerned about, you know, like other social programs and kind of, you know, because a lot of other countries I think are advanced in social programs and stuff like that. But, you know, America is really about like strength through having a strong defense. You know, that's where our strength comes from.
So just so you know, Area 51, or pardon me, Nellis Air Force Base, which holds Area 51, is 7,700 square kilometers. And I did mistake, and I will admit this, I did make a mistake.
But if you want to know the true size of it, Dave, and if you're looking at the map, see, it doesn't just start at the Nevada Test and Training Range.
Mm-hmm.
You have to start at Edwards Air Force Base and even start at Vandenberg, which is on the coastline. And that's when you're going to see. It goes Vandenberg Air Force Base, then Edwards Air Force Base, then China Lake, then it's Death Valley National Park, then it's all BLM land, then it's the Nevada Test and Training Range. And that's what me and Tracey are just dead set on helping people understand, that there's so much encroachment here in the United States that it's incredible if you start like investigating how much area they take up. And they combine here like national parks and the publicly owned BLM land to kind of confiscate huge swaths of area, and no one really knows because they just kind of encircle this little area. But the more you investigate, you find out that they're actually shooting missiles into space above Death Valley, type of thing.
It is very interesting indeed what is actually going on at some of these hidden facilities, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. And there's like huge rumors of an underground city under Death Valley. There's been like three people over history who had gone to like mine and find like mines in Death Valley and ended up finding some ancient underground area where like Native Americans lived. And then even that Walker Lake conspiracy I was talking about with like the underground chambers. And of course here in California, we have the San Andreas Fault. And so California is kind of just sliding back and forth, cut in half.
Which reminds me, Los Angeles area has just been hit with a 3.6 magnitude earthquake moments ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. A baby compared to their standards. A baby. Just a little rocky and rolling.
That's not even a nuclear test, man.
Exactly. That could have been, since we're talking Area 51, that could have been the Aurora flying over. Just saying. You never know, since we are in a conspiracy-type talk tonight. Hey, I want to focus on people for the remainder of the hour here. Okay, well, we can go wherever it wants, but for right now, I want to focus on people here, because earlier this hour, you had said, that a beautiful night was signed, where you got the Milky Way above you, and, maybe it's a moonless night, and there's not a cloud in the sky, and you got stars all over the place. It's a good night to see UFOs. We have a lot of people who stare up at the stars on a nightly basis, and who really never seem to find anything anomalous in the sky. How many hours are you staring up at the sky before you maybe see something anomalous?
Oh, man. Gosh, I would have to say like 40 hours before I even see like a satellite that looks weird, and like you see like a couple satellites pass each other. And I would say it has to be months. Like sometimes it feels like months packed together. So literally sky watching every single night in places where you're getting a good view of the sky. We're at the airspace above us, and most of the places where we're UFO hunting is military, and unlimited airspace. And there's also a facility here that has authorization for private space flight. And so that adds in to the pie, So if we were looking at a percentage, like, yes, there's UFO sightings in specific places, but in conjunction and combination, we also have other possibilities for craft going at an unlimited altitude. And even with all of that jam-packed together, us visiting military facilities, I'd say 40 hours before you even see something you think is weird, but then you go back and analyze it on footage, and, oh, man, I don't know if it really is weird. It might just be, a military plane coming in at a weird angle or something. So, but when we were at Area 51, I caught like a weird solid white object heading towards Rachel, Nevada. Seemed to be really low and moving faster than a satellite would be. And there was no noise, so I didn't know what it was. But the strange thing that we saw is when we finally went to bed. And so we're parked at like the base of the trailhead to Tikaboo, and we sleep in the SUV. And I'm looking out like the driver's side back window as I'm laying in the sleeping bag, like staring outside, because I'm always tripped out that like a bear or a mountain lion's going to come. So I'm the one who has like a handgun, if we have one, right? And so I'm like watching out for animals, and of course I'm always staring at the sky, and it's our hopes to get abducted sometime. So we're very interested in something coming down or us seeing something, and it's like a passion, So I'm staring out the window, and I see something. So the direction I'm looking is actually towards Area 51. So I'm kind of looking at Tikaboo Peak, and just to the right would be Area 51 straight ahead. And I see a flashing light, a solid flashing white light coming from the Groom Lake area and flying straight towards our position. Now, it's still really far away, but I can tell that it wasn't moving straight up like a satellite would, like a flashing satellite. So this one was actually staying at like the same altitude and flashing, but was moving up slowly, so you could tell that it was like coming towards us. And then all of a sudden it started going straight up like a satellite would, and then in the video you can see that it actually like passes by a star and flashes. So that was kind of weird because it eventually ended up disappearing. So I don't know what it was, but if it was like a military craft, they went lights out and stopped using their lights. But I don't know if it was like a space object that we could see, but it seemed too low, and in the video I kind of recreate the position and where we're looking at and combined it with like a photograph I took of the area. So that was weird. But we're talking about like the work put in is, it will drive you crazy. I mean, 99.999% of the time, there's nothing to be seen. So if someone wants to like do this, you've got to like love to look at the stars. Me and Tracey both love like nature. We like trying to find animals. So just like you were saying earlier, we love like seeing bobcats. We see bobcats all the time. We've come across a lynx, which was really cool. We came across a bear in our Pine Mountain Club video when we went up to Mount Pinos. We actually ended up coming across a bear, which isn't uncommon because we're always searching like national parks and stuff. And we love like photography and doing like the camera stuff. We're not too big on like getting in front of cameras or anything like that. It's not even about that. We love just being able to like record it and show people and them have fun watching. So I think there's, while it may seem like, okay, let's go UFO hunting and we're going to put up all these expensive cameras and we're going to catch this, like, good luck with that. The thing is you could have like the worst camera, bro. You just got to be ready when the time comes. And that's what it's all about. It's like Wild West quick draw. If you want to set up all these expensive cameras and you want to try to point it to this specific spot or get next to this mountain and I'm going to point the cameras right here, and when the UFO comes I'm going to catch it, like, good luck with that, because UFOs don't follow a pattern. In fact, they're called unidentified flying object because no one knows anything about them, and it's hard to call any of us experts because we don't even know what we're researching. All we know is that there's these strange experiences, and so we're trying to figure out and document what's going on. And so I think the thing is just to have equipment that just gives you the ability to see something. If it happens, you can get it out quickly, capture the shot. And that's what people want to see, and they don't want to see it in thermal and they don't want to see it in infrared. They want to see it in a visual light. I think like anything, when we watch a movie or we're watching TV or anything, what helps us relate to it is making us feel like we're there. We want to watch what's like one of my favorite? Okay, like X-Files is like my favorite show. It's because I'd love to be Fox Mulder. Shoot, I would love to have the government paycheck unlimited budgets, fly here, fly there, investigate mysteries. And so that's what's intriguing. And that's kind of what we're trying to provide, is that same experience. And then if we do catch something, it's typically in our visual light cameras, just like someone was there so they can see it just like we see it.
So for the amateur or the person who just has mild or a large curiosity about wanting to see something in the sky, what are they looking for? Because for most people, everything's going to look like a satellite or space dust,
right?
Streaking across the sky, but most people don't.
I know, but think about that, Dave. Like, how do we know it's a satellite, bro? So that's where like, I think the skeptics get themselves hung up, because the probability of seeing something in the sky, yes, a satellite is an option. How do you know it's not the X-37B Boeing orbital experimental test aircraft? How does a skeptic know that? They don't. So they just fall back to, oh, you're crazy, it's a satellite. So that's where I advocate to anybody, like, if you see something in the sky, record it, put it up for others to watch. We all love seeing it, and we want to know what it is. There's ways where we can check the positions of it, when it was flying, the time it was flying, and it can help us pick apart if what we're seeing might be something military. I mean, maybe it's a private space aircraft. But the thing we're looking for is, like, the speed of it. We'd like to see it change direction. And remember with the satellite thing, too, and what the skeptics and the debunkers will never tell you, is that when you're seeing a satellite, typically you're seeing it because it's reflecting sunlight, right? So, like, you're more likely to see a satellite right when the sun's going down or right when the sun is coming up, because the sun is below the horizon, yet the rays of it are hitting objects that are elevated up in the atmosphere or in space. So what does the skeptic say at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning when an object comes overhead? They can't say nothing, because you can't reflect the sun when the sun's on the other side of the earth. And so if you see an object at like 1 in the morning, for someone in the United States, of course, Canada's a little different with the position of the sun. But if you see something at like 1 in the morning, I could care less if it doesn't change direction or doesn't make a hard turn left, because what we're seeing is something that's emitting light of its own, and it's out there in space, and that's not common. Like, what out in space has like beacon lights on it, right, shining all the way down to Earth? And I definitely would like say to people that the experiences and the sightings that are truly fascinating, and leave those of us researching hanging, are the ones that are happening close to the ground. I mean, I've received sightings of that green orb by the Lake Isabella area. And like I've said before on Spaced Out Radio, it's run into cars. So it's been moving along the ground at like a 50 to 100 mile an hour speed and rams into an object and makes noise. And so there's some kind of unexplainable connections where sightings are happening at low elevations. I had done a radio interview in Kansas City, Missouri, on 98.9. And they had a sighting because they had like solicited for some sightings before I came on, right? Because they like never do UFOs. So they got this sighting from this kid who lived on a farm in Missouri. And one night, him and his friends saw a blue light appear at the end of one of the stretches of their farmland. And the blue light was like right above the ground and was emanating such bright light it was like hard to look at, and actually left physical trace evidence on the ground and like burned the trees, burned the ground. And so when we're searching for like these unidentified objects, you know, it doesn't have to be like where if you watch a UFO Seekers video, you know, first thing off, man, I'm going to show you a picture of the Milky Way in there somewhere, and some great like star pictures. But it's not like that, you know. Go search out like those mysteries of those things close to the ground, because they could even have some like paranormal connection, or maybe it's like interdimensional beings. And it's not that I'm advocating any of those to be true, and I'd never take speculation beyond and like speculate on speculation. But the fact that you have some kind of ground level sightings, like that, it doesn't have to be like out in the Mojave Desert in Death Valley looking up at a perfectly clear sky. You know, these things are happening in a farm near you somewhere.
So for the people who are out there just gazing up at the sky, they shouldn't expect something. I mean, it's much like what we tell the people in the paranormal. You know, when we do our tour, we can't guarantee that something's going to happen, but unless you put yourself in that position, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, and if you're doing UFOs, it's not like a paranormal investigation, you know, like, let's say I turn on like a popular TV show and they're looking for ghosts. Well, they have a house to go to with 4 walls, 2 levels. This is where you investigate. This is where the activity is. You even have witnesses who say it's repeatedly occurring here. Okay, let's set up cameras down this hall in this bedroom. You could cover the whole place with cameras. The thing is when we're looking for UFOs, there is no pattern, like ever. They're here, they're there, they come once, they come twice. You know, it could be something that is seen in LA, and then the next day it's something seen in Sacramento. So it's not like you just have a location that you can go to, man, and you're going to see a UFO. And I don't even have one of those locations. I don't even know one. I mean, we managed to catch something in the Sequoia National Forest. It may be a supersonic drone. I've had a military official tell me that it was the Aurora project. I believe it's like episode 6 we made. It's called Cloaking Device or UFO. We were UFO hunting in a place called Sherman Pass, which is north of Kernville in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And we were taking photographs of what's called the little camp town of Johnsondale, which is just like a seasonal campground. And it's actually like a military airspace area, but there's lots of UFO sightings. And in fact, there's been classified craft that have crashed in this area. So you typically have craft that fly in a certain direction, and they might be a low-flying F-35 or something comes through. Typically in there, it's actually an F-18 trainer that they fly. But we were taking photographs. It would be outside of any normal type military time where they'd be flying through any of these canyons or doing anything. We were getting ready to do some sky watching. We were taking photographs with a 16-millimeter lens, so they were very wide photographs, not zoomed in. And in 2 of them, we caught some kind of cloud-like looking object coming out of coming down from the sky and diving into a canyon. And granted, when we were taking the pictures, we took 15 rapid.
Rapid what? You can't just end it on a rapid. Wondering if we lost Tim.
Like object diving into a canyon.
You cut out there for about 5 or 6 seconds.
It's military.
Yes. I got my tinfoil hat right beside me. Don't make me put it on this late in the show, man. I've gone a whole show without having to put it on. Would have nothing to do with Skype or anything like that, but that's okay. Tim,
go ahead.
We only have about 4 minutes here, so I just want to let you finish up your story here, and I got a quick question from the audience.
Cool. Yeah, and so what I think we caught is either like a UFO, or it was actually a supersonic drone. So when we were taking rapid shots, this thing showed up and was moving so fast to only be caught in 2 of the pictures. And in the background, you can actually see 2 smaller ones. So I was told that it was a Northrop Grumman project, something like the Aurora, and it was actually like a mother of a drone fleet. So,
beauty. This one comes from Vinny, who is saying, going back to your comment about wanting to be abducted, have you ever attempted to energetically connect and call to them to take you?
I mean, yeah, because we're spending so much time out there, yes, we've looked at the sky and started, like, chanting to the sky, like, please. But I'm really not trying, we're really not, like, going that route.
Damn gnomes are back again. I wonder if he is walking around or something along those lines. Let's see how long it takes him to come back up here. Because I know the connection line is still going. He doesn't even know that he's off the air right now. He doesn't even know. But that's okay. This is a long one.
Can you hear me?
There you go. There you go. Now you're back.
Okay, I ran outside.
Ah, that's why. Why, did you have some aliens coming to your door?
No. I was just in my office, not even walking around.
Oh, it's that damn office.
But yeah, I mean, we're taking like a societal perspective on these things. So we don't necessarily even acknowledge that aliens do exist. So for us to do something like that, I guess you'd say we'd be going with that they're there. I mean, even though we're meeting, I've met with people like you, Dave, where you've had experiences, it doesn't mean that like UFO Seekers acknowledges that as truth, because we take it kind of like a court of fact. So if we do come across evidence of these things being real, then you would see us jumping to that level of trying to have like communications. And so even if you were going to ask our advice on people who claim to have these kind of connections, all I would ask of you is to find that proof of what they're talking about, So if someone says that it's possible to do A or B, to make contact with this kind or that kind of alien, if I were you, I would just ask for the proof, and once you can see it, hey, if you can come show me, I will definitely start doing it every time.
But that is the power of intuition, perception. Getting in touch with your higher self, your chi, your zen, man.
I agree.
Your chi and your zen, you gotta test it out. It's unscientific if you don't. Unscientific.
Hey, it's not that I think that any of those things don't exist and like have no opinion, but we do chase things like that, So we are interested in every mystery,
Absolutely, my friend. I've started Mr. Bumblefoot up. Little brother is watching. Tim, why don't you take about 45 seconds, explain UFO Seekers, where people can find you.
Sure. UFO Seekers investigates UFOs 365 days a year, and then we take video footage of our adventures and our investigations and put them into a YouTube web series. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is UFO Seekers, and there you'll get notifications when we upload our new videos. Also, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and Pinterest. And then also you can visit our website, ufoseekers.com, where you can find official gear, so you can get yourself a hat or a t-shirt. And then also we do post some kinds of UFO news, and we also do a blog that kind of covers our adventures from time to time.
Thank you so much, Tim. Your next appearance on this show will be in October, which will be the 16th.
All right, close to Halloween.
Absolutely. The 92nd birthday of my late grandfather. Or 93rd. I don't know. One of the two. He was born in 1924. So, one of those ones. Anyhow, it'll be a good night.
Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, my friend. You hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL playing in the background. Little brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. He rocks us in and out of every single show. Check his website, bumblefoot.com. Make sure you see if he has any tour dates scheduled around you. He's in Europe right now. Tomorrow night on the program, We're getting into the chemtrails conspiracy. Patrick Roddy is going to join us. We're going to see what the heck is actually being sprayed in our skies. Is it something we need to be concerned with, or something that's just a contrail gone bad? And it's a figment of our imagination. We will find out tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, at spacedoutradio.com. Don't forget to visit our website where we got a plethora of features for you. We want to see you check us out. Help spread the word, my friends, because you guys do a great job in the audience, on Twitter, in the chat rooms, every day spreading the word. Because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, take us home.